Everyone, welcome back. Today I wanted to take a look at some contemporary themes on art and analyze this through the lens of Kafka's Hunger Artist. I had you read this and it was seen probably a little bit different, a little bit odd, and that's kind of true to Kafka's style. But he teases out some really interesting concepts that help us to understand some of the dialogue, the discourse that's happening within the modern world, and how artists are seeing their connection to the audience. And so a couple of specific questions that I want you to think about as you read through the story. The first one is, what are the differences between the casual and permanent watchers? Why are both important to the artist's craft, right? So as we think about the fact that an artist needs an audience in order to create a performance. Otherwise, there's no one to watch or appreciate, and there's no point for the particular performance. And so why do you need both the casual and the permanent watchers for this particular craft to actually happen, right? To make it important, right? Number two, why do the lackadaisical watchers annoy the hunger artist, right? In what ways does the audience limit the hunger artist craft? And so as we think about that relationship between the hunger artist and the audience, and you have some page numbers to look at, and I'm not sure if those are they're going to match up exactly with whatever edition that you had. That was probably an earlier edition, so they might not exactly match up, but it'll be roughly within that kind of framework from when the beginning of the story is, so you can kind of judge it there. But as you think about the idea of the relationship of the artist to the audience, and in what ways do they limit his craft, right? So he suggests that he can go on, indefinitely, but the audience starts to wane after a certain amount of time, right? They start to not believe it. They start to believe that there's some type of cheating. And so he says that he can only go for so long that keeps the audience attention, that has their peak interest. And after that point, then there's no point in going on. And so he suggests that there's actually greater craft that he can reach, right? Greater lengths that he can reach, greater boundaries that he can push, but he's limited by the audience. And I want you to think about how that might relate to artists, right? Being able to do something new, different with their art, but they're limited by what the audience can appreciate or understand, or willing to accept or purchase, right? So there's that duality between that relationship of the hunger artist, or the artist in general, and the audience. While the audience praises the hunger artist for a successful performance, why is he dissatisfied after completing his fast? And so think about that, all right? So he's been able to complete it, and the audience was really enthralled and captivated by it, but it was not successful for him. And again, I want you to think about that, how that might pertain to artists completing something, right? The process of completing. We've been taking a look at abstract expressionism and how art is not necessarily just something that is an end product that you put in a museum, but it is something that is a process of completion, a process of creation. And so that becomes the art. And we see similar ideas with the hunger artist. It's the process of being hungry that brings people in. But the people are like an active participant within the work. There's this exchange going on. And after he completes this and the audience is pleased, he's not pleased, right? So again, we see that tension between what he's capable of versus what the audience is willing to be able to allow, right? So there's that tension between there. Why does the hunger artist despise the photos that are sold during this performance? What do those photos suggest? What is the great secret that only the hunger artist knows, right? So I want you to think about that. And I want, again, think about how that pertains to art, right? This is all contextualizing a greater discussion that's happening within the contemporary world about art, and the artist's ability to create art and the audience's ability to appreciate it. Why do you think that the newer audience loses interest in the hunger artist's performance, right? So what's happened that's changed, right? And here's a couple more, deeper analysis questions for us to consider. We'll kind of come back to this on Wednesday. Much of the story deals with juxtaposing opposing concepts, such as casual versus permanent watchers, fervent versus lax watchers, truth versus falsehood, reality versus perception, honesty versus cheating, ease versus difficulty, old versus new, audience versus artist, etc. Why do you think Kafka emphasizes these juxtapositions in the story? What do you think he's trying to accomplish by constantly contrasting, right? So as we take a look at the constant contrasting images and metaphors and ideas within the story, what do you think is happening, right? How is he trying to accomplish an objective by doing that? And while the hunger artist struggles with his audience throughout this performance, he nevertheless needs them. Why does the hunger artist need an audience, especially if they frustrate him? So again, why do artists need an audience if they're going to limit their craft? I was once talking with an artist a couple months ago, and I was talking to her about her art, and she was saying how it's popular, people like it, but she says she always takes about 2 months off a year, and she does art just for her. That's totally different from the the art that's in her museums that people are willing to pay for. But this art, right, during that 2-month window, gives her an ability to just do something for her, something that she's interested in. She feels that sometimes because she's successful, she's been put inside a box, and so she can only do that because that's what the audience expects of her. So again, how does the audience start to limit the artist's ability to be creative, innovative, right? And so this is going to be an ongoing discussion that we see with the relationship of the artist and the audience. And this begins with our discussion of Dadaism, right? What is an artist and what is an artist's responsibility? And this is going to continue on throughout the 20th century. And then the final question I want you to think about is, how could this story be interpreted as a metaphor for the connection between the artist and his or her craft? And I've been helping you think about a couple concepts of this as we've gone through these questions. But this is the question I mainly want to get back to as we come back on Wednesday, is thinking about this idea of the relationship between the artist and art, and the artist and the audience, and how this is all becoming more, I don't want to say conflicted, but more brought to the forefront of the discussion to think about, right? Creativity versus expectations, and how that's going to be a complicated story, a complicated narrative as we go throughout the 20th and into the 21st century.